Well, it is a big win for pro-choice groups because basically what the Supreme Court did was strike down that law from Louisiana that required doctors who perform abortions in that state to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. What critics of the law were saying, those who pushed for that case to go to the Supreme Court, they were saying that basically if you really applied that law, there would be one doctor in one clinic left able to perform abortions for all women in the state of Louisiana. And what the court decided was that this was placing an undue burden on women and that was going against their constitutional right to be allowed to have an abortion. And once again, Chief Justice John Roberts, a conservative, sided with the liberal justices, and he wrote in his concurring opinion that he clearly made it clear that he was not really protecting the rights of women to get abortions, but he was ruling on precedent because there was a similar law that was struck down 4 years ago, a Texas law that was doing pretty much the same thing with admitting privileges. The court had struck it down back then. The court had to strike it again because it was exactly the same situation. That's what John Roberts said. But he said that if other states and other cases brought to light admitting privileges that had something a little bit different, then the result of the Supreme Court could be different, which means that there is a victory right now for pro-choice groups, but they are worried about what could happen later on with new cases coming forward in the Supreme Court.
Katavan, what reaction have we had in so far from the White House?
Well, so far it's simply been a written statement by the press secretary, Kelly McEnany, who called it an unfortunate decision by the Supreme Court. And she did take a pretty big swipe at the justices who voted to strike down that law. Obviously, the four liberal justices who have been coming under fire from the White House for months and years now, but also Chief Justice John Roberts. She said, quote, that these, instead of valuing fundamental democratic principles, unelected justices have intruded on the sovereign prerogatives of state government. So it really gives you an idea about how the White House is attacking those justices. They have suffered, the White House, several defeats in the Supreme Court, despite the conservatives being a majority in the Supreme Court. We saw the abortion right, we saw the LGBTQ right, and the ruling on the Dreamers, the DACA ruling. But let's remember that this is an election year, and this decision on abortion rights is going to be used on both sides of the aisle, for the Democrats and for Republicans, to really fire up their base. And Donald Trump has been doing that for weeks now, really repeating every time he speaks, repeating that his re-election is also a way to protect constitutional rights. And he mentions every single time he mentions those abortion rights and the push from the Democrats to get more abortion possible, whereas he is saying that he will be protecting a life by putting more conservative judges on courts and more conservative judges on the Supreme Court.